Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Mike Mangialardi here, and I wanted to do a really cool, pretty simple tutorial on Vue.js. So this is going to be just showing kind of some cool features that Vue.js has to offer, and we're going to make a interactive Game Boy. And this is all going to be fairly simple, but again, it's going to be a good introduction to some cool things that Vue.js has to offer. And this is like just a mini web application that is really focused on design. And this is one of my personal favorite ways to learn Vue.js. And I've been spending a lot of time by doing similar things. So what I wanted to do in this video is in front of me there's a pure CSS Game Boy, but it's the back of the Game Boy, as you'll notice. Now if I scroll a little bit down, we have the front of the Game Boy. Now these are both pure CSS images that I've already gone ahead and created for this template. And now you can go ahead and in the description for this video, open up the pen that will lead you to this template, fork it, and then in that pen that you forked, continue to do the code as we code along in there. So what we're going to eventually have is you're going to be able to click the sticker button. Right now it doesn't do anything. But you click the back of this Game Boy, and what's going to happen is we want some animation so that this Pokemon cartridge will slide in, and then once it slides in, this is going to disappear. So the back of the Game Boy won't be active, but then activate front of the Game Boy, which will be hidden until it gets activated. And then on our screen, we're going to have three different images pop up on the screen as if you were loading Pokemon Red in real life. So that's kind of the aim for this video tutorial, and I hope this is some fun and something different than maybe you haven't done something like this before. But anyways, we could go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is, okay, we've got two pure CSS images. However, we need to have it so only this first one displays and the second one doesn't display by default. In order to do that, we're going to get set up with Vue.js, and we're going to initiate two different Vue instances, which are going to have data and methods that we can operate as two different scenes. So the back of the Game Boy is going to be a Vue instance called Scene1, and the second Game Boy is going to be called Scene2, and we want Scene1 to be activated first by default. So first thing we'll have to do is we'll have to add the external JavaScript that allows us to use Vue.js. So in CodePen under JavaScript, we can just scroll down to Vue, and then we can hit save and close, and we'll be good to go. So to create our first Vue instance, we'll do var scene1 is equal to new Vue, and then we're going to have some data, and we'll also have some methods. So we have some data and some methods for this scene1. Currently, we just want some data that's going to be a Boolean that's going to say, hey, do we want to show this scene or not? And first, I forgot to specify that we'll need to add an L, and the L is going to have an ID, which we'll also call scene1. When we have ID of scene1 in our HTML, all of these divs that are a child of that div of ID scene1 are going to be referenced to this scene1 instance. So, for example, we can go ahead and add div ID equal to scene1, and then we'll wrap that around this entire pure CSS image, the first one, which is this. And now all of this, so if we put data and methods, they're going to be in reference to this scene1. So for our data, what we want is a Boolean that's going to control whether this back of this Game Boy renders or not. So we'll call it show back. And by default, we want this to be available, so we'll call it show true, or pardon me, so we'll set it to true. So we just add it in this div ID of scene1. So we can say v if equal to show back. So what this is doing is saying, all right, so if show back is true, which in our case it is, then we want this to display. Now if it's set to false, like that, it's no longer going to display. Oops, looks like I had a mistake. I actually had the hashtag in the actual ID, which is not what we want. So we get rid of that, and now we see that show back, so the back of the Game Boy, which is all up here, is set to false, so it's not rendering. So if we set it back to true, now it renders. So this is a concept called conditional rendering. And it's a really cool feature of Vue.js that makes making scenes and doing fun miniature applications really easy to do. All right, so now that we have that done, let's go ahead and initiate our scene 2, which is going to be very similar. Again, we're going to have an L for scene 2, some data, and methods. All right, so there we have a scene 2 with some data methods, and let's add a show front, and we're going to set it equal to false because we don't want the front to be shown by default. So just like we did up here, we are going to wrap this with the ID of scene 2, and we'll change this from show front to from show back to show front, and then set it, put in our closing div. And now you can see that our front, so our scene 1, the back of our Game Boy, is the only one rendering because show front is equal to false. And in scene 1, show back is set to true. So we see the back of the Game Boy. All right, so that looks good. Now what we need to do first is let's add some functionality. So if I go ahead and click on this sticker, so this right here is this right here. So this div class equals sticker is what this this component is, and it's being highlighted in red when we hover. So we want the user to be able to click this, and when they click this, we're going to cause some animation to occur with our cartridge. So in the CSS, I already have defined 2 separate classes. So currently, this is just referring to this cartridge class. So it's just static. It's just sitting at top of -80%. There's no animation going on in this cartridge class that is currently controlling the cartridge we see in our image. However, I also had made a cartridge active class. Now, what's different about this cartridge active class is that it has an animation statement called slide in. So this animation is going to last 3 seconds and it's going to run once. So if we take a look at my CSS template as well, you'll see that also included this very simple CSS animation. So I defined this animation called slide in, and I'm just saying at 0%, we're going to be at -80%, so where it is now. And at 100%, we're going to slide down as if we were, actually putting in this Game Boy. So that is what the slide in animation is going to be doing. So what we need to do is switch from the static class that we see now that's just called cartridge that has no animation, and we want to switch to cartridge active, which does have an animation. And then once this animation occurs and slides in, then we're going to want to go to the front of the Game Boy. But for now, let's just handle controlling the class dynamically with Vue.js, and we can do that by binding the class. So here is where we have class equals a cartridge. So we're going to head and change this, and we're going to say v-bind class equal to cartridge class. So we haven't specified cartridge class in the data of our scene 1. So let's go ahead and do that. So we do cartridge class, and then we're going to set it to a value of cartridge by default. So now, as you can see, we have the cartridge class being applied using vbind class. So how this works is we're saying vbind class, so we're saying, okay, we don't want this class to be, something we just typed in. We want this to be some data in our Vue instance, and we know that Vue instance, because we're binding the class, is going to control the class. So this is equivalent to as if we just wrote class equal to cartridge, because cartridge class has a value of cartridge. So what we can do is we can have the user click this button, and when they click that button, we'll change this class from cartridge to cartridge active, which has our animation. So first things first, let's go ahead and add the event handler to our sticker, which is this. So let me go ahead and find that sticker. Okay, so here's the sticker. So now for Vue.js, we could do v on click equal to, and we don't have any functions written yet. So let's go ahead and write the function. So we're going to call this function flip Gameboy. So this function is going to handle all the logic from switching from the back of our Game Boy and going to the front of our Game Boy. So in here we'll do flip Game Boy. So now when a user clicks sticker, it's going to activate this function called flip Game Boy, and we'll put some code in here. So the code that we're going to write is, first, as I mentioned, let's just test out changing our cartridge class dynamically. So we access cartridge class because it is within this Vue instance of scene 1. So we're in a method that's in the same instance as our data that we want to access. We use this. So we say this.cartridge class, we'll set it equal to cartridge active. So a user should click the sticker. That click is going to call flip Game Boy, and then flip Game Boy is going to change our cartridge class, which is going to have an animation. So let's test this out. And there we go. We have our animation running, which just slides it down, and it takes 3 seconds to run, and it only has one iteration, meaning it doesn't cycle infinitely, or even 2 or 3 times. It just runs once. Okay, so we've got that done. Now the next thing that we'll need to do is that we need to have flip Game Boy go to our next scene. So to go to our next scene, what we had to do is we had to deactivate our current scene, and whether our current scene is active or not is being controlled by showback. And showback is true, so we'll set showback to equal to false. And then what's controlling if scene 2 shows is show front. So we want show front to be set to true. So since we want to access some data that's in other that's in another instance, we use scene 2 dot show front is equal to true. So let's test this out. So now it's going to the front of the Game Boy when we click by deactivating our first scene and activating our second scene. So it's deactivating the back of the Game Boy and it's activating the front of the Game Boy. So that is correct. However, we don't want this to run right away. We want to be able to wait 3 seconds before these 2 lines run. And the reason is because we want our animation to take place, and that animation takes 3 seconds. So after that animation runs, then we can run these 2 lines to go to the front of our Game Boy. So we can do this by using a set timeout. And this might look a little weird, but this is a syntax basically to, run some code after some time. And so we specify how much time we want to wait by putting a comma next to this bracket, and then we're going to put 3500. So 3500 means 3.5 seconds, and so the animation takes 3 seconds to complete. So the animation can complete, we'll have 0.5 seconds of a break, and then these 2 lines are going to run, which are going to toggle on the front of our Game Boy. So we need to move these lines in here. So now these lines will run after our animation completes in about 3.5 seconds. So we could go ahead and test this out. So we click the button. We see the animation is able to complete. And then it goes over to the front of our Game Boy. So that's all we need to do for scene 1. That looks good. So now we can go ahead and move on with our scene 2. The main thing that we're only going to be doing is we're going to have this image tag here, and we're going to be changing the images that display on our screen. So to do that, we can actually bind the source, so we could dynamically control the source link of our image just like we could dynamically control our class. So we'll do v-bind source, and we'll set it equal to screen pick. So in our data, we'll have screen pick, and then we want it to be the source for some image. So let me go ahead and grab the image. What I want to grab is just the Game Boy Color logo, which is what it looks like when you turn it on. So here is the image that I want. So I can just copy image address, and I'm going to paste this in our screen pick. And so now we run the animation, and we have this Game Boy image displaying. And I set the CSS already for a class called screen, which is just saying we want the image to take up the entire size of this inner container. So what we want to do next is we want to switch to a different image. So how can we do that dynamically? So specifically with this, we don't want it to do it by, user has to click a button to go to the next image, because that's not how it works when you turn on a Game Boy. So what we're going to need to do is take advantage of Vue.js Lifecycle Hooks. So what a Lifecycle Hook is for instance, I'm going to put updated like that. So I just put a comma and I put updated and I add it on after my methods. So what we could do is we could put different lifecycle hooks that can run some code on a particular lifecycle. So for instance, what we have here is we have updated. So when something in our Vue in the scene 2 instance updates, then we can run some code in here. Or what we can additionally do is we can just call a function. So we want to call a function when our Vue.js instance scene 2 is updated. So because show front is being set equal to false in our scene 1 function, it's being updated. So we can call a function when that occurs. Okay, so we want to call a function when this gets updated. So first let's write the function, and let's just call it switch screen. Actually, I'm just going to change this to change pic. That might make it a little more sense because we're just going to be changing our screen picture. All right, so when we have an update, we are going to call this dot change pic. And in this dot change pic, we're going to change screen pic, which again is the source for our image, to something else. So let's change it to the Game Freak logo. So I'm going to copy this image and then paste it in like that. So we should be changing our screen pic when we have an update. So we click on this, the animation runs, and then we have our Gameboy screen. And so this doesn't work because we need a set timeout for our picture. So in our change pic, we want to set timeout. That is going to be set to wait 3 seconds. All right, so we're going to wait 3 seconds, and then we're going to change our screen pic to the Game Freak logo. So let's test this out. So we click here. The animation runs. We flip to the front of the Game Boy. We switch to our Game Freak logo after waiting 3 seconds. Okay, so this is working. However, we want to add a third image that we're going to change. So let's add another set timeout. And now we want to wait 6,000 seconds. So this waited 3 seconds, and then we want to have that image display for 3 seconds, and then we're going to switch to a new image. So the image I want to display is going to be the Pokemon Red start screen. And I found a pretty cool one. Here it is. Okay, so here's a pretty cool Pokemon Red version image. So let me copy that and paste that in here. And now we can test this out. Sticker, animation runs. We have the Game Boy. We have the Game Freak logo. And then we have our final Pokemon image. All right, so there's something wrong going on. So this makes sense. All right, we wait 3 seconds, and then we change our initial picture to the Game Freak logo, and then we wait 3 more seconds by having a set time of 6 seconds, and then we change it to that Pokemon Red screen like we wanted. However, remember, we have this lifecycle hook that's calling this .change pic whenever there is a change. We only want to run when we flip to the Game Boy, and there's an update there. But once it's updated to the front of the Game Boy, we don't want it to keep rerunning this function every time. So what we can do is let's write another Boolean, which we'll call switched. We're going to set it equal to false. And so we want this only to run if switched is equal to true. If switched, and this should be this dot switched because we're accessing data called switched. So if switched is true, then that means we can go ahead and change the picture. However, before it is changed to true, so before this dot switch is equal to true, we'll call a function which we'll call update switched. So let's write another function call update. This should be update, not updated. So update switched function. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say this dot switched is equal to true. And then what I can also do is change it so when we first flip onto the Game Boy, we're going to set switched equal to true, and then we're going to have it so this image displays after waiting 3 seconds. Then from there going forward, we're just going to be displaying this second image, which is going to be our Pokemon Red start screen. So let's test this out. So I click on the back of my Pokemon, or pardon me, on the back of my Game Boy. We see the animation. We see the Game Boy logo screen. In 3 seconds, it switches to Game Freak. And then it switches over to our Pokemon Red version, and it stays there because it's only just going to continually be this one final image, which is what we see now. So that is it. That is the entire application that I want to make, and just wanted to have some fun, and hopefully you were able to kind of see some cool benefits of being able to work with pure CSS images and Vue.js to just learn Vue.js in a way that's fun, in a way that really stretches your creativity, and that has a heavy emphasis on design. We learned some cool things like starting up some new Vue instances, having different scenes, being able to control sources for our images, and a whole sorts of stuff. So I hope this is of benefit to you guys. And if you guys are interested in doing something similar to what I just went through, I did actually release a course which you can find at codingartist.io, and I'll have the actual course link available in the description. But what this course is that I go through and teach the basics of Vue.js, and then we go through various examples that are a little bit more complex than what we just did, and we go and work with how to take pure CSS images and sprinkle some Vue.js and make some fun mini applications. So that course is called Power Up with Pure CSS Images and Vue.js to Make Fun Apps. And again, that's available at codingartist.io, and the specific link you can grab in the description. So thanks guys so much for tuning in to this video, and make sure to like and subscribe if you want more videos that are similar to this content. Thanks guys.